Mohit, hi, good to have you with us. How have you been?
Hi Ashu, thank you for having me here. Thank you. I've been good and excited to be able to get talk to you.
And I think more importantly, you're keeping the world fit, right? Which is just so much more important. I think, especially in the last 1.5 years, right? Mohit, this is particularly interesting session, right? We've had about 200 plus interactions with some amazing founders, investors, right? And ecosystem builders. Very few would actually, from the fitness industry, and especially in the fitness equipment, right, industry, who built a very successful ecosystem. So this becomes a very interesting and exciting conversation because going forward, I think these are two pieces, right? Fitness and the community around it. I mean, we're going to see some phenomenal models that'll come out of India, right? Given the sensitivity that we've gotten to, we've seen a couple of businesses funded, largely because of the community that they built. So, all of that put together, I think this becomes an interesting session, and I look forward to covering a lot of ground on that particular thing, right? The trends that are emerging, more importantly, in India, as we get back to normal, right? The excitement that is there. I'd love to know a lot more about you, right? Because fitness is an industry we've always been sensitive of, right? But I think a large part of India, we go back to eating those pakoras and our traditional, the food that we have, which is and while fitness continues to stay in our mind, it takes a backseat in a certain form and way, right? Thus, it becomes this conversation becomes important in that context. But before we start, right, I'd love you to take us through your background, right, of all the good work that you've been doing as a professional, right, and of course, through the course of our conversation, we'll cover how a lot of that helped you building, the brand that it is today. So over to you, Mohit.
Great, great. Yeah, about my background, I prior to starting OneFitPlus, I had like a few. I tried my hand at e-commerce, tried a few things. I think I say this to everybody that if you look at the e-commerce category, like on if you go on Amazon and Flipkart, and if you look at the categories, we've done everything and failed. And then yeah,
Interesting.
and so and prior to that, I worked at I worked in e-commerce. I was working at Amazon for 5.5 years, and I thought
Interesting.
that prepared me enough for building a great D2C brand. I soon realized in that 2 years that was not good enough. Um, Prior to that, I have hotel experience. So I used to work in hotels for 6 to 7 years,
Hmm.
8 years actually, in multiple hotels from Delhi, Bangalore, Bombay, Sharjah, London, and then
Interesting.
felt that I need to go back and things which I did not do in childhood, which is study hard. I should go back to school. So I went and did a went to a B school, and then worked in e-commerce and then did this. So
Interesting.
that's the journey.
Super. Mohit, I think, I think it'll only be fair, right? If we can, I think what we've seen in the last 1.5 years is a huge transformation that has happened in the healthcare and, wellness and fitness industry, right? I mean, everybody wants to be fit, right? What I would love to start this conversation with is essentially what's happening on that front, right? How large are the numbers? How significant has been the shift, right? Which is so critical to understand in today's context. Tell me a little more about that.
Sure. Sure. I think um, there are three things which have happened, which we have seen over the last few years.
Okay.
The first is internet connectivity,
Hmm.
right? Like uh, there were days when a lot of us come from small places. Like I come
Sure.
from Jhansi, I'm staying in Raipur, right? If you look back at 6 7 years back when we were working in corporate, it was very difficult to be in these cities and check your emails.
Right.
Even checking your emails was difficult, right?
Right.
And over the last 4 5 years, right? And over the last 4 5 years, I think that has solved. Uh,
Right.
4G connectivity and mobile phones and data prices. So information, access to health and fitness, and after some point of time, how much movies do you watch, right? So you
Right.
also absorb information
Hmm. Mohit, I lost you.
about fashion. That's a trend.
Interesting.
So I think that's a trend. Um, the second thing which has happened is that e-commerce has helped us in a big way on reaching out to customers, and
Hmm.
customers have discovered products which otherwise they would not find in their neighborhood shops
Interesting.
or in their cities. So I
Mhm.
think that has impacted fitness in a positive way, because now you can launch a product and it can be available across India on the same day.
Right.
Which was earlier not happening.
Mhm.
And the third is the cruel pandemic, where
Right.
over the last 2 years, we've been at home, locked out, uh, a lot of sad stories and fearing health.
Right.
And while there is, because there have been time, because we've saved time on commuting, on going out and other things,
Right.
people have focused on different areas, including fitness.
Right.
But I think the above, more than that, I think there's that realization which has set in,
Right.
that when it comes to your health, the your financial power or your intelligence or your friends and relatives cannot help you.
Right.
It is your health which can fight the disease. Nothing
Right.
else can fight the disease. And therefore fitness is important to fight the disease.
Right.
So all those three combined has thrown out interesting opportunities for fitness. Fitness cardio equipments is a 1,400 crore market, which is going approximately 30%, 40%. But if we look at India overall, our financial, our fitness penetration is less than 0.5%, which means fitness penetration is defined as number of people who every day do some kind of an exercise.
Right.
As percentage of population, US is at 20%, and Europe is at 15%. China is at 4.9%, and India is less than 0.5%. So there's so much scope for us to become so much more fitter as a nation. And I think our jobs have changed. Our lifestyle has not changed. And when I say I mean, my grandfather would cycle to office every day, and I sit in the car, come and sit in my chair, and have 5 cups of tea and 3 types of snacks, and then I go home. So I think that lifestyle has changed, but my fitness regimen for most of us have not changed. So I think that's a big area to change.
That's very interesting. But surprisingly, I cycled yesterday after a very long time, right? And I've realized how we never took it, for example, seriously, right? And I think that's the case with overall fitness, right? We just do very elementary things and think that that kind of suffices for the requirement for us to stay fit and all that, right? But what we're not realizing is that I think the intensity has to be higher, right? When we're doing a lot of this, and it has to be more focused, handheld, intelligent, so much more, right? And we're going to cover all of that, through the course of this, right? But I'd love to understand what's the construct of OneFitPlus. Now, what is it? What are the categories that you are kind of catering to? Vis-a-vis, and what's the status of competition, right? Because this is a category where there have been many people, right? You have also larger, you're creating a D2C brand, right? You also have larger brands like, for example, DCATs, which have come up, right? So there are larger format stores which are coming up, which are not just taking care of, say, just one particular bit. They're essentially offering the full stack, right? And that is changing how we look at, for example, the entire industry, the sports, fitness, wellness industry, right? So love to know the construct at OneFitPlus.
Great. We love to talk about our customers, not so much about the competition. We love to talk about the customers,
right?
And I think that's the core, right? That's
right.
So a simple. I'll try to answer it very simply. We sell home fitness equipments.
Sure.
And we sell outdoor cycles, which are outdoor equipments. If you buy a OneFitPlus treadmill or an indoor bike, then one of the first things which you get, which is different, is we will come to your home and install the material. Which is like we are the only ones with a 29,000 pin code after sales network.
Wow.
So it is obvious if you buy an air conditioner or a television that somebody is going to come to your home and install it.
Right.
But it's not so obvious when you buy other things. So we solved that part, because that was a great big customer pain point. Right? In India, we are not DIY customers. We are not guys who go to IKEA, get the bed and then do it ourselves. We would go to IKEA, buy the bed, and then pay somebody 1,000 rupees and then get it. Right. So,
Right.
right. And then and ideally we want the installation person to be from IKEA, so that in case if there's a problem, then we don't
Yeah.
have to fight between IKEA and that installation. You did wrong. You did wrong. No, you did wrong.
Right.
So, so therefore, we provide, like, everybody who buys across 29,000 pin code, which is almost all of India. Uh,
Right.
we have our engineers who would come to your home and do this installation.
Interesting.
And they do a lot of other things, like they would tell you how to use our app, how to
Right.
connect the machine to our app, how
Mhm.
to use our dietitians, how to use our
Interesting.
trainers, doctors.
Right.
So after the service, then the next level is, a lot of us buy a machine,
Mhm.
hoping that we are going to run every day for like 15 kilometers per hour.
Right. Right.
Right. And we get a lot of customers, but a lot of customers also do not understand that 15 kilometers per hour is not practical.
Right.
Most people actually run at 7 kilometers per hour and not 15.
Right.
And there's a particular process of running, which is you have to warm up,
Interesting.
you have to run and then cool down. So we
Right.
have trainers. So, and that this is also inclusive. So we have trainers who coach every customer
Mhm.
around based on their individual needs.
Right.
The needs can be around losing weight. The
Mhm.
need may be around uh, getting fit. The
Right.
need can be about staying active and so
Uh-huh.
on. So
Right.
there are trainers who would coach, and it happens through a video call. Um,
Interesting.
and they get a plan on the app, and they can
Mhm.
track the plan.
Right.
So every day, like for example, a great cardio plan or a great running plan may include 2 days of light jogging, and then
Right.
1 day of rest, then one
Interesting.
day of weight training, and then another day of uh, a little more speed running. And so we build that roadmap because we understand that if the moment you stop
Right.
exercising, that is a failure point, right?
Mhm.
It's very difficult for people to get back at exercising.
Right.
So we try to ensure that people who start with us continue with us,
Mhm.
and otherwise a lot of treadmills don't get used, right? That's a problem.
Right. And they
We try to
use for a
ensure
variety of other things at home.
right. So we don't want that to happen, and that's therefore we deliver that coaching, so that that coaching is sustainable.
Right.
People don't get injured, or
Right.
don't. It becomes so tiring that they don't enjoy their day, and then they'll never come back.
Right.
So even after making that sale, we believe still that the customer has to use it every day.
Right.
Then a lot of our customers initially did not understand that diet is an important part. So we have a
Mhm.
dietitians on panel who give you a diet plan based
Okay.
on, like you were saying, that we have a food pattern, right? Like that
Right.
food pattern is that
Right.
if it's raining, then we want the pakoda with chai, right? And if
Right.
it is right, and Sunday, maybe a masala omelette, and so on and so on. So we try to build a holistic fitness plan where
Right.
diet is also an important part.
Mhm.
And in that diet, we look after uh, what your food choices are,
Right.
and we have like um, a food inventory of around 10,000 Indian foods,
Mhm.
where the dietitian is able to recommend you a plan based
Right.
on what you like,
Interesting.
which also has to be sustainable, because
Right.
for example, my parents would eat a paratha every day for breakfast.
Right.
I can't ask them to eat stirred vegetables, yeah, or boiled vegetables in the morning, right? That's
Right.
not never going to happen. Right?
Right.
So I think expertise is about using that data and
Right.
building sustainable plans. So that's what the dietitians do, and you can track it on your app with the
Interesting.
photographs, and you can track that. So that's then. And in case there are customers who have a medical history,
Right.
we have doctors who also give consultation. In case,
Interesting.
for example, you had a leg injury
Mhm.
and you bought a treadmill,
Right.
we may want to tell you that you walk initially for 4 kilometers
Right.
and use these exercises, and only then you start running. So
Right.
some of it,
Right.
some of that happens through the doctor consultation. So that's the experience after you buy. But
Right.
we've also learned over a period of time that even after this, um, the exercise is very synonymous with effort.
Right.
So, uh, we do effort where we get incentivized, like
Right.
we put effort at work
Interesting.
because we get incentivized on promotions and compensation.
Right.
we we put effort at home because we love our families, and
Right.
incentive of around that. But in exercise, uh, the incentive um, is your own body, and
Right.
that own body doesn't cry out that you're not exercising. You
Right.
tend to ignore that and postpone it for later.
Right.
So and if you take an example of when we were kids, when we were playing cricket, we did not calculate how many minutes we were playing cricket and how much calories we burnt, and
Right.
mostly we would get scolding and then go home, right?
Right.
And we would have to pull out of the field to go home.
Right.
And but we don't do that as an adult when we are exercising.
Right.
So there is that enjoyment which was missing in exercise. We
Absolutely.
are trying to solve that enjoyment problem.
Very
uh,
interesting.
we have a game called FitWash. So if you buy a treadmill or if you buy an indoor bike, uh, you can connect with people from Kerala to Kashmir.
Right.
Uh, you can get onto their, you can get on a game with them. Uh,
Right.
you have a character or an avatar on the screen, and while you are spinning indoor, there are multiple people who are competing with you, and you
Right.
get, and at the end of the race, there's a ranking. So basically there's a Formula One racing kind of an event which is happening
Interesting.
every half an hour.
Right.
And we believe that that would drive people to enjoy exercise,
Right.
because it becomes like a PUBG, but where you're actually getting fit.
Interesting. Mohit, that's a combination of a lot of interesting things, and I'm sure it's taken you a lot of time to for it to evolve, right? Because I mean, when you look at traditional players in this category, right, who've largely considered this to be an equipment supplies business, right, and never possibly took home fitness that seriously, right, at home fitness that seriously, never thought of all of this, right? I think what you are, the way you kind of explained it, right, it seems to be a very continuous engaging process, right, to ensure that there is lesser dropout, right, and whatever conversions that happen, right, from a sales standpoint, continue to be part of your ecosystem for a much longer time and eventually get fit, right, and motivate others, right, and that's essentially what I understand out of what you are kind of putting. But I think one thing which stands out, right, out of all of what you said, right, is the role of community. Now if you're looking at fitness, right, and last few years, especially 1.5 years, there were a lot of models that existed, right? They were essentially community driven models. uh, I think community has just become so much more important when it's about fitness, right? Now, what you are doing is you're not only kind of giving them the equipment and enabling them with all of this, say, consultation with doctors and stuff like that. What you're also giving them is a power of community, right, through these gaming and stuff like that, right? Uh, what else is happening in this front, right? Because this is something. So at the end of the day, everybody's fighting for the same community, right? I mean, if you look at, say, Adidas, right, they have a team of runners. They've established these chapters across cities. If you look at some of the other ones which are into say, for example, bodybuilding, they've created a community. Now essentially the same motivated consumer is getting pulled into all of these communities, right? There's a very strong overlap. How does one differentiate, while of course one is understood that community is going to be very, very significant for one, to drive sales, drive second virality, and third is to ensure that people are hooked on, right? But how do you differentiate yourself vis-a-vis many other communities that exist, solving for the same problem?
Right. Right. I think we are focused on working customer backwards,
Right.
and I think that's what's helped us.
Hmm.
So all of these services which we built up,
Right.
uh, we did not start with a grand vision. Uh, for example, 1 year when we said that over the next 5 years we are going to do all of this.
Right.
Actually, we keep saying that we are very average people
Right.
who keep, but we are very good at listening to customers, and we do what customers tells us.
Right.
So I think that humility and listening and keeping our ears open and
Right.
working on what customers tell us has
Hmm.
got us here,
Right.
and we want to continue doing that.
Hmm.
So for example, when we started installing and going to customers homes, that taught us, we could see what customers were wearing,
Right.
that they were not wearing shoes while using a treadmill, and that told us, we need to do more. We need to
Right.
tell we need to build awareness on how this machine has to be used.
Interesting.
We build that. Then second, we learned that while a lot of customers wanted to lose weight, they were not even considering diet. For
Right.
them, diet was like, diet cannot change.
Interesting.
Exercise will get them to it. And then we learned that while once we build our app, we realized that while users were very active in the first few weeks, they were falling off after 4 weeks.
Right.
And so we said, what is missing? What are we missing that after 4 weeks, nobody's, very few people are interested in using it.
Right.
And we said that, we are not solving the customer problem. Nobody thinks that they want a treadmill. They think that I have to get fit or I have to lose weight. And
Right.
that's the customer need. That's the problem.
Right.
And what we are doing is we are selling a treadmill, which is part of the solution, which is not the complete solution.
Correct.
So the complete solution is making them use the machine every day.
Right.
And that is about making engaging and immersive products so that they do it because they enjoy it.
Right.
And when they enjoy it, the community helps them to compete and stay engaged.
Interesting.
So for us, that community building is more around making people fit. We don't think about how our community is going to be better off than another community, because it's going to get very complex to plan like that. For example, somebody is interested in outdoor running, and while we would say that outdoor running is great, but there are seasons you cannot go out. There are times you cannot go out. There are clothes which a lot of Indians cannot wear while they're running outside. Like a lot of females, there's safety issues. There are there's some apparel a lot of people don't
cultural issues.
Yeah, cultural issues. There are people don't go to the gyms because of those cultural issues.
Right.
So home fitness is probably the easiest. And home fitness is where we are focused on, and and we want to build that engagement and immersive experience that customers love us.
Right.
And we stop there.
Interesting. But when we talk of home fitness, I think one particular challenge that has happened, right? And I think all of us pursued that, as soon as we hit COVID, right? I think everybody was the first, I think 3, 4, 5 days, possibly the first week, second week, right? I think each one of us was motivated to, right, kind of pick up fitness. And we started to do something or the other, right? A lot of these gyms that can't shut down, right? The trainers essentially took online, a lot of online models came up, right? Where the people who were teaching, various exercises and so on and so forth, right? But one thing which has been very, very constant, right? Something that you also alluded to in your point, right? When you talk of home fitness, because you're doing it by yourself or you're doing it with one person, you don't have many other people to talk to, right? There's little or lesser social engagement. The fallout rate become so much more significant, right? I mean, how do you keep that motivation on, right? In a setting like that, I mean, irrespective of whatever you create, right? There's a certain sense of monotony which will step in, right? To keep yourself motivated at that level is just so much more difficult, right? People tend to, these newer diets that are coming, people tend to take these diets and, because the results are much quicker, they become lean and all that, right? Without necessarily understanding that, fitness needs to kind of be, it has to be part of your regular regimen, right? Especially with growing in age and so on and so forth, right? What do you do to solve that challenge? And that's a very, very difficult challenge. Today, buying an equipment is not a challenge, right? With all the financing which is available, right? I think you just need that small amount of motivation to go out and actually purchase. But being on it is a challenge. You answered some of that in many ways, but what do you do around the social setting, right? So, for example, gym becomes a point of hangout for many people, right? Because you meet 10 other people in a domestic environment. That doesn't happen, right? And eventually it will fizzle out at some point in time. What do you do to keep that intact, right? So that these people achieve their targets, right? And are hooked on to the system. They don't drop out of the system.
Right. We are a tech first company, and we try to use technology to solve that problem. And I'll give an example of we were like when we were children, or when our last generation was.
Sure.
We lived in joint families, and
Right.
we were very close knit, right? And then there was a time when we were not so close, because we were most people were working in big cities.
Sure.
But today, if you look at our social ecosystem, we are close. We know exactly whose birthday is when,
Right.
we know who's traveling where,
Right.
and I think that the single most thing which has got it done is WhatsApp, right?
Right.
Because the family group, family
Right.
group, everybody knows exactly whose birthday it is, and so that joint family setting, that closeness has used technology, and
Right.
while now we are living in different cities, I think we are more connected than we were even uh, 3 decades back.
Right.
I think technology is that uh, one big lever
Right.
that has solved the community problem, and we try to do that by connecting people um, in their homes. Even if you are under a lockdown, you
Uh-huh.
should not feel alone
Right.
while you are, and there is going to be a lot more, we are going to get lot more social around,
Interesting.
where people will be able to connect with each other, talk to each other. And our uber goal is, if somebody can get married through our fitness.
Interesting.
Say,
Interesting.
just that would be the day I'm going to celebrate. So yeah.
Interesting. But I think my sense is I think those are challenges that you kind of understand and accept, right? And I think it is not something where you can solve it with say one or two hacks, right? I think this is a process where you'll have to keep your eyes and ears focused, right, on what happens, right? How does the consumer engage? And eventually I think continue to build those features. That's essentially what you are kind of
Right.
mentioning. But Mohit, very very fundamental question, right? I think things are getting back to normal. Physical is coming back into being. People. I mean, and we've been seeing data, right? Travel is kind of picked up. It's pre-COVID levels. It's actually beyond COVID levels. Occupancies have kind of increased. Gyms have come back, right? The government is kind of now promoting because small businesses were getting hit. There's a lot of that which is happening. A lot of people are actually going back. What's your sense of it? What do you make out of this, right? Given that fitness is something personally to me, and we can always agree to disagree. Uh, is where you have to have an element of experiential element, right? It's just so much more important. Be it running, be it exercises, be it part of a group. Physical engagement is very, very important.
Right.
What's your sense of it? What do you see the industry, the way this industry is going to evolve next couple of years? What's your sense of it?
Right. I think in the small term, in the short term,
Sure.
there is going to be some uh, some uh, ups and downs which
Mhm.
are going to happen.
Right.
For example, there is seasonality which
Right.
comes in every year, right? Diwali
Sure.
shopping is high, and post Diwali shopping is low, and
Right.
then New Year time, everybody is making New Year resolutions, so the shopping is high, and then
Right.
February it is low, and those are short-term phenomena which will happen.
Right.
Then there are these macroeconomic phenomena like pandemic,
Right.
where pandemic was there and a lot of buying happened. Post
Sure.
pandemic, there's going to be a drop. Um, but I think there are two big things, important things, which for which we are very excited about.
Sure.
One is this: our population and fitness penetration density.
Mhm.
Uh, I think as a population, we are not uh, really spending a lot of time on fitness. Uh, and we discussed the 0.5%, less than 0.5% number. For China is 0.5% and US is 20%. So the just looking at that, there's a 20x opportunity
Right.
uh, to build that home fitness market.
Right.
The other is that all forms of fitness will be uh, important. The forms of fitness, when I say that there's going to be at center fitness, which is when you go to a gym or a cross fitness center. So there's going to be that cross fitness center.
Sure.
It's important because a lot of people, sustainability is about socializing. Like you
Right.
said, that you join a gym, you make friends. Uh, those friends then check with you, are you coming today? If even if you don't want to, they make sure you come. So that's a
Right.
positive peer pressure which makes you go to the gym.
Sure.
And I think that's a very good way and a very good reason for people to go to gyms.
Mhm.
And everybody cannot go to gyms. There are
Right.
multiple reasons why they cannot,
Right.
in cultural, social, and so on and so forth. So we are not, while we mentally compete with gyms, we know that we don't
Right.
want to end the gym business, right? It's not going to be possible. I think that, so that's one component. The other
Right.
component is outdoors. There are
Uh-huh.
people who love cycling, and therefore we are a cycling company as well, where we do urban terrain is our brand. When customers can do cycling, we give them the community app, we give them the diet plan, we have the pan India installation where you are the only ones who come to your home and install the bicycle. And we are we've seen great growth over there, and we are really focused on building the cycling community out there. And then there'll be people who are walkers and runners, the morning walk and the evening walk, which our parents do. And I don't think we can get a whole lot of them on the treadmill or on the indoor bike, because it's just more leisurely. They can do it at their own time. They have like our parents. So, and that's also going to be relevant. And then there's going to be home fitness. The headroom to grow into home fitness, we believe, is so much. And there are few times when you have done the right things and you are ahead in terms of service and consultation, like you called it, and technology and community building and engagement. So we are excited around, while there may be a small drop in e-commerce, because suddenly people are fatigued with buying too many things on e-commerce. Go out to the malls and just experience that. Same thing goes with food. There's just too much of cakes and bakery items. So now people want to go out and go to restaurants, and today restaurants are all full. Like I go to restaurants, they say, like, nowadays every day is a weekend. Right, so they're packed, and so there's going to be that small fatigue. Users have got fatigued with the pandemic, and now they want to go out and just spend time with family and friends. Over a long period of time, I think there are customers who are going to choose home fitness because they need it. There are customers who are going to choose Ed Center because they need it. And there are going to be customers who are going to choose outdoors because they need it. We want to ensure that the customers who think of home fitness, they don't think of it as a suboptimal choice. They think of it with excitement, that when they compare it with their gym, they think that this is even way more better. And that, I think, then we'll want to leave the choice to the customer.
Interesting. But I think I kind of agree with what you're saying, right? In fact, when you're saying what you are, right, in my mind, I'm just kind of thinking, just many instances, right, that are around us, right. My sense is, I think both of these pieces are going to coexist. I think it's a wrong possibility of way of looking at it, right, which is superior, because I think none is superior. At the end of the day, outcome is essentially a fitness, a fit body, right, and a fit mind. I think that's essentially what it's all geared to, and it's going to coexist, right. There will always be people who are going to gyms, but they'll have a smaller setup at home, right, and there'll be people who can't go to gyms, will always have a slightly more elaborate setup at home, right. And there are, I think these are things that are still unfolding, right. I think those trends will become clear over a period of time, but I think my sense is that I think in India, it's here to stay, and it's here to coexist in both of those, for both of those offerings. But the other thing that I want to move to, right, which is very, very important, I think one thing that we've seen around COVID, and why I'm kind of referring to COVID is because it's been transformational, right? Especially for the fitness industry, because fitness industry there was always this awareness and all that, right? It just gave people time, right? The exposure and the experience kind of increased, right? And there are certain habits that have now kind of settled into a very large set of audience. And we'll talk of numbers as we go along, right? But before I do that, tier 2 and tier 3 India, right? When we come from that part of the country, we were always there was a lag, right? There was an information arbitrage that existed, right? You would get something in a large cosmopolitan or metropolitan market. You would not typically have that available in a tier 2 market, right? Now, D2C has changed all of that, right? When you go online, you very quickly sort of buy it. All of that is there. The other thing is that, with content now, it's becoming very, very exciting, right? People want to buy it as quickly as possible, right? What are the trends that you see emerging in those areas? Because to me, and I talk to many founders, what I've realized is that tier 2 is essentially tier 2 and downwards, right? Tier 3 is essentially aping tier 1, right? The arbitrage is kind of going away. And with D2C and, serviceability across so many pin codes, people are buying right, left, and center. I think what possibly issues that exist in those areas are, say, still lack of financing, which is picking up and all that. But aspirationally, the two markets are essentially now coming together very, very closely. What's your sense of it? What is it that you've seen, right? Especially in this particular category, in the last 1.5 years, what kind of a shift have you seen?
Right. I've spent 10, 11 years in e-commerce. So there's been data inside e-commerce, and there's been data which I have seen as a brand
Sure.
using e-commerce extensively.
Right.
I can say that 2014, 2015, 60% or 65% of the demand used to
Right.
come from the top 12 cities. 12
Right.
cities. Today, that those top 12 cities contribute about approximately 30%,
Right.
and the tier 2 and tier 3 actually contribute 70%.
Amazing.
When we started out, we never thought it would ever, I mean, it would come in so fast, right? And
Right.
that's the, I think we've underestimated technology, like personally me, and I think a lot of people
Right.
underestimated that what technology and information can do.
Right.
We are seeing the transformation in education, we are seeing the transformation in finance,
Right.
we're seeing the transformation in banking, and we are seeing the transformation in commerce. We've
Mhm.
seen a lot of it already. We also want to bring that transformation in fitness,
Right.
which is right today. For example, I'm based out of Raipur, and when I
Right.
play the game or when I do a live session,
Right.
my connectivity speeds are just as good as the music plays and the trainer is live, and then
Right.
the trainer can see my session and can see what speed I'm running at
Right.
and what rank I am, and is able to talk to me when I'm doing live session through OneFitPlus.
Right.
So we have a live session where a trainer is there and multiple users are there, and the trainer
Right.
is telling them how to, and there's a leaderboard, so they are stack ranked. And
Interesting.
right, so this is like a better than gym experience, right? Like there's
Right.
in a gym, if you go, there's going to be one trainer and there are multiple people on a treadmill. Over here, there's actually a trainer who's walking or running with you,
Right.
and then there are these 200 people from across India, and the trainer can see your stats. They can see whether it's your birthday or how many rides you've come or how much distance you've done,
Right.
and they can actually talk to you. So
Right.
technology is solving that engagement, motivation, community building problems, which I think pandemic gave us a time to invest big time into
Right.
technology. We could clearly see, I think a lot of us could clearly see that that this is the time where you invest disproportionately on technology,
Right.
because it's going to become very, very important. You
Right.
can see that trend in engineer salaries as well, right? Like
Yes.
bikes and cars and whatnot to join a company now.
Right.
So
Interesting. Interesting. But we've talked of many things, right? I think it's only fair, you've given a very fair perspective, right? In terms of what's been happening, the journey of a consumer, how are you kind of solving that, right? And, it's absolutely phenomenal to see how you're visualizing a 360-degree engagement, right? While of course there are challenges, in a home setup, but I think, like we discussed, right? This is a category which is going to coexist with gyms, right? And I think this is always going to be that easier piece to go to, right? I think fitness is something that is becoming part of the regimen, right? My sense is this is also possibly getting reflected in numbers. I'd love you to take us through your numbers, right? Also, if you could give me a split between what's happening in tier A cities and tier 2 cities, right? From a sales standpoint, uh, like we discussed in the last question, right? That aspirationally tier 2 and downwards is kind of peaking, right? You're already servicing many pin codes. How have the numbers been like?
right. Right. So, from our revenue standpoint, I think we've been fortunate. We are doubling every year. Uh,
Interesting.
we did more than 150 CR last year in financial year
Wow,
2020,
that's amazing.
2021, and then last year we did around 80 CR. So that was financial year 2020.
Right.
And before that, I think we did 35 to 40 CR. So that was like, so we've been doubling every year. There's been still during pandemic, there were a lot of times where we were stocked out because we couldn't
Right.
get, because we couldn't, there was lockdowns in multiple parts of the country, multiple
Right.
parts of the world, and we didn't have enough inventory. So I think that's a good part. And we've also seen a lot of, like earlier, like I was saying, that our 65% of our users were coming from, our customers were coming from the top 12 cities. Like
Right.
top 12 cities would be, number one would be Bangalore, number two would be Delhi, three would be Bombay,
Right.
Hyderabad, Pune, Calcutta, and so on. Today, 70% of our customers are coming from tier 2 and beyond.
Interesting.
Right? So while Bangalore and Delhi and Bombay still contribute a large chunk,
Right.
uh, we service, like we look at our heat map of India, and they're almost everywhere, like almost everywhere. With that
Right.
29,000 pin codes, we see a lot of the highest growth in terms of demand has come from places like Northeast,
Right.
West Bengal, Bihar, and UP.
That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, who would have thought that, these areas going to pick up so quickly, right? And I think, like we discussed, right? And I discussed this with many, many founders. I think they've seen a phenomenal surge in offtake across these markets. Mohit, I wanted to actually discuss, the challenges of building a D2C brand in a category which is, say, for example, that of fitness, right? Which requires a certain push, right? It requires very different kind of motivation, and I'm going to come to that. But before I do that, I would have to understand is, you in your point alluded to the fact that um, you know 2020, because of all the disruption that happened in the supply chain, right, serviceability became a big issue. A lot of companies, for example, were procuring from China, right, because it's just so much more easier, right? There's a lot of, you can actually go pick and choose and then kind of just ship, right? It became a very simple, lean process. 2020 was also a year where, there was a huge surge in make in India, right, for all of what we've seen. uh, what's been your kind of, is has there been a change in your strategy on sourcing within that framework, or does the reliance continues to be on external components, imported components? What's the how is that playing out?
Right. I think there are these historic moments where you have these monumental learnings and
Sure.
take some big decisions. I think
Right.
for us also, uh, pandemic has been that time. Although initially we were always focused around manufacturing or
Right.
making it, but we were making like a few products over here. Like
Right.
our bottle shakers were being made over here.
Mhm.
We Over the last 2 years, I think we started manufacturing bicycles, we started manufacturing exercise bikes, and we have a roadmap of doing a lot of other things uh,
Right.
in our own factories,
Oh,
which we
fantastic.
which we've set up over
Right.
the last. I think we tend to, as an organization, we say that, for example, 3 years back we said this is a year of service, and we build the service. Then
Right.
next year we said that this is the year of health services, and we build
Right.
the diet and the this thing, because it's not easy, right? Like when we started with the trainers, our first thought was that we will send a trainer to every customer's
Right.
home, and we tried doing that, and it was bad. Like there were customer complaining that the trainer has not reached, trainer saying that I'll not go because it's too far,
Right.
and the trainer would go and knock and the customer would not open because he would be sleeping, and like
Right.
crazy. There's been like multiple failures behind finally getting it right.
Right.
And so now I think I've just learned to understand that failure is part of the process, right?
Right.
We're going to start something and it's going to fail. uh, coming back to the question, I think uh, that this is, or next year 2022 is that year of manufacturing for us,
Mhm.
where we have invested and we are going to invest massively onto manufacturing and make in India. uh,
Interesting.
so yeah, it's a very important area for us.
Phenomenal. But I want to move to, like I said, right? I want to talk to you about challenges, right? Now, when you look at pretty much all of fitness, wellness, all of that, right? Uh, we are still a very aspirational market, right? And when I say an aspirational market, we essentially tend to get influenced very quickly. We become a brand conscious economy, right? If I can put it that way, right? Our affiliation, affinity to, international brands has become just so much more thicker, through the course of it, right? I mean, we get influenced pretty much all across the board. How difficult is that for you as a player in this category, right? Because what people are constantly seeing is the rock, right, and all the equipment and all the jazz that's there around, say, for example, his fitness activities, right? There are certain other models that people are going to follow. uh, how challenging does it become, right, to cater to a market which is getting influenced, continuously influenced, right? Because I mean, you're not kind of fencing the content that they have access to. They have access to pretty much all the global content. How difficult has that particular been, right? To going out and communicating the ethos of the brand that is getting built, right? which is in India, from India, for India. Uh, how has that piece been, right? What are some of the things that you, for example, learned and sort of made it a part of your practice to ensure that there is that confidence which is uh, rightly positioned uh, to ensure that there is continuous offtake which happens, right? What's been that? How's that played out for you?
I think one is that the most important thing, which continuously, I think I've probably used that word a few times, but that one important thing is working customer backwards. I
Right.
think that just solves a lot of the issues, a lot
Sure.
of the problems. For example, when we look at content, uh, there's content available on YouTube,
Right.
is free, right?
Sure.
And there's a lot of other free videos as well. But the content which customer values
Sure.
is live session
Right.
where the trainer is able to see the customer statistics and talk to
Right.
the customer.
Right.
The trainer knows how many sessions you've been, how much
Right.
kilometers you walked, how
Right.
much, which city are you in, what's your age group, what's your gender, what's
Right.
your name. And he or she is able to deliver that, can talk to you
Right.
as your personal trainer. So
Right.
this is like, in a way, we are trying to standardize, like Uber and Ola standardized driving, right, cabs across India, right? Like
Right.
you could see the star rating, if you knew it was safe, it was standard, this guy will not say some X money and charge you Y.
Right.
uh, from a personal trainer standpoint, we are trying to solve that across the country by saying that there's a trainer every morning, every evening,
Right.
male and female, English and Hindi, uh, and who can talk to you in every session and would
Right.
know your and would and we have a lot of trainers and a lot of customers talking to each other after the session.
Right.
So this is like the best personal trainer standardized across India,
Right.
uh, through this. So again, understanding customer and using technology and processes to solve the customer need. I
Right.
think I think we focus on that, and I think that keeping the teams also focused on that helps to uh, cancel the noise coming from outside.
Right.
Uh,
Interesting.
so so that's one. And I think there's also, for a model like this, when you build more technology, when you
Right.
build more services,
Hmm.
uh, it's difficult to compete on price.
Right.
And India is a very price sensitive market. So
Right.
it's about a lot of that is about, for us, one of the challenges around awareness building.
Right.
That that why is content important, why
Right.
is gaming important, right? Like, I can talk to you and you can understand over a 5-minute discussion, but how do we communicate to millions of users across India
Right.
over social media or over a catalog on e-commerce
Right.
or over our app or a website? And I think that's one of our biggest challenges currently. How do we communicate so that they can make an educated choice,
Interesting.
we versus everyone else?
Right. Well, I think I like the way you kind of cutting it, right? You're actually a content first company. I mean, if you look at, if I hear you, right, I think you're actually a content first company because that's essentially filling in that inconsistency that comes in, right? And I think that's so that makes you a content first company, right? Mohit, we're going to move into a slightly different direction, right? That's a direction of the newer trends that are emerging, right? Now, what we've seen, for example, is that many people, um, for a variety of reasons, right, have actually chosen not to be buying the equipment, right? Rental, for example, is now a new trend which is kind of picking up, right? I'm sure you've seen that already. There are a bunch of companies that have been funded, right? A lot of these companies were essentially stocked out, and the fastest moving item for them was essentially fitness equipment, right? And there was treadmills and the cycles, and so on and so forth, right? Uh, what do you make out of it, right? Is this a trend which is here to stay? Do you think people will continue to rent, and this is going to go on to become much larger, or do you think primary ownership will still be a significant driver of the entire category? What's your sense of it?
I think, from the customer's viewpoint, buying rental, I mean, taking it on rent is so much easier. You
Right.
build a habit, and if you can sustain the habit, then you go full time.
Sure.
It's like dating before marriage.
Right.
Right. So I think it's a great concept.
Right.
The thing is that it has to be economic sense. It has to make economic sense because equipments are large, heavy, bulky.
Right.
They have to be shipped and then they have to be installed.
Sure.
Then once the user stops using it, they have to be uninstalled and gotten back.
Mhm.
And then it has to be in a state where the next user, uh, for the next user, is it's as good as new.
Right.
Like it's like rental car business
Right.
where customers would, if given a choice, they would pick the newest, smartest car.
You always want a new one.
Right, right. So that economic sense, it has to play out
Right.
into that economic sense,
Uh-huh.
and I think uh, I believe that uh, the cost of rentals and the cost of full ownership, there's hardly any gap in that.
Right.
So
Interesting.
if you're going to pay 70% for a 3-month rental, and at 100% you can own it forever,
Right.
sell it probably at 50% if you want to sell it as second hand, then
Right.
you would choose the 100% path. And I think that
Interesting.
is the financial decision which the customer is making in his mind. So unless it is loss funded, right? Like you can start up, you can do a startup and sell it at 1,000 rupees, rent it at 1,000 rupees, but the cost is 4,000 rupees. I think customers would use it. I think the big question is, can you use economies of scale and get it down to 1,500 rupees, and
Interesting.
over a period of time increase your price to 1,500 rupees?
Right.
Is there a market there for that?
Mhm.
I don't know that answer. I'm not the expert in that area,
Right.
but just solving it verbally, I think that is what I think it is. Understanding the fitness business, I think uh, I would love to work with somebody who can solve that problem, and I can help them make some customers. I would. So
Interesting.
yeah.
Super. What? That was a very interesting question, right? That was part of the list of questions that I had for you, part of the discussion, right? Now, I mean, all of us know, and when you are in a market like the one you are in, especially when you are a D2C brand, right? Where you're largely, it's a very transparent medium of communicating with a buyer, right? They have access to pretty much all the information. There's nothing that you can hide in the process, right? There are rankings, ratings, reviews, and you have competitive matrix, right? Who's offering what at what price and so forth, right? Now what that essentially does is that for any company in the D2C environment, it limits your ability to price a product, right? It gets commoditized very, very quickly. Now the kind of category that you are in gets commoditized all the more quickly. I mean, if I'm, for example, doing a certain variety of soap or cream, right, I could still price it, because of the creativity involved, I could still price it with a premium. In the category that you are in, it gets commoditized very quickly. That essentially means that the upside is very predictable, very limited in many ways, right? Now, with all of this, the community and the entire ecosystem of activities that you built, right? What's been, have you had the advantage of being able to, build in that premium on the product that you sell? Or do you think that's part of your acquisition play, right? Through the course of engagement, it'll kind of normalize, so on and so forth, and that not necessarily leading into a premium that is getting paid out to you. It's a feature that has become a must, right, for you to go out and sell, irrespective of it being a cost. How do you crack that particular um, that set, because that's very, very important, and a lot of businesses possibly can actually learn from them, because it'll be correct and true for them as well. How have you cracked it?
I think these are, for us, these are long-term bets,
Sure.
and which will play out over a period of time.
Mhm.
Today, we measure our engagement and our activations, and we are excited that, for example, a user spends 15 minutes on our game.
Right.
Uh, do we make money from it? No, we don't. Do we charge extra for the customer? No, we don't.
Okay.
Uh, but we want the user to buy OneFitPlus because
Right.
he's going to get the game.
Right.
And I think today it would be unfair to the user if we start charging more,
Sure.
because I don't think the user completely understands the
Interesting.
the game. So
Right.
I think the first step is, the ball is in our court. First to build that awareness, first to build that stickiness,
Sure.
uh, first to build that understanding that this is the best way to get fit.
Interesting.
Once that, once our customers understand that OneFit Plus is the best way to get fit,
Right.
then they would understand that for that best way there is going to be a price, because uh, there's that live session which only OneFit Plus gives, and there's
Sure.
gaming which only OneFitPlus gives,
Right.
and there's a host of hassle-free ownership and fitness journey ecosystem which
Right.
OneFitPlus gives, and then they will be, and then we can charge them that money. So I think
Interesting.
then there is this equipment piece which we say that, that we are not going to sell it at a loss,
Right.
and then there are these long-term bets which are
Interesting.
long-term bets because we are not going to charge customers right now,
Right.
and unless they become successful, and unless the customer says, I really appreciate it, you can look at my data and I
Right.
use it every day, and
Interesting.
therefore now you can charge me.
Interesting. That's very interesting, right? Well, that's very interesting because you're building a long-term engagement, right, which necessarily did not exist in this particular category. Mohit, we're towards the end of the conversation. Competition becomes important, right? Now, I usually don't bring up competition because it's unfair, right? But I think in an industry like the one you are, there are many models that are getting experimented with, right? There are content-first models, there are equipment-first models, right? Who are now kind of layering it up with content, right? Essentially a model that you would sort of say qualify in. Now, what happens in an environment like that? So now what is happening is post-COVID, a lot of roles are kind of shifting and a lot of roles are changing, right? So for example, a lot of content companies are now, cross-selling or looking at possibilities to cross-sell hardware, right? A lot of companies which essentially came up with wearables are now looking at a lot of at-home fitness equipment business, right? They're bringing in treadmills, they're bringing in cycles, they're trying to sort of leverage all of that. And they already have an ecosystem of, say, trainers, experts, dietitians, doctors, all of that is available, right? Now, that makes this entire thing a big, complex category, right? Everybody is chasing that consumer, and you know what I'm kind of talking about, right? Uh, what's
I'm
your
thinking of
sense?
which company are you talking about?
You know the ones I'm talking about, but I think we'll keep the names aside for now. But what happens in an environment like that, right? Does it become far more competitive? Does that mean you're going to have to offer more discounts in the process? And then of course look at overall or a longer term period payout, right? Like the one you kind of mentioned in your earlier point. What happens when everybody wants a pie in this growth, which you're seeing and you anticipate over the next couple of years, right? Because the motivation is already set it, right? Everybody today is aware of of and their need to be fit. uh, what's your sense of it? How are you looking at competition, right? What's your How do you cut that complexity
I think
and your positioning?
I think one, if a lot of these big companies want to get into fitness, home fitness, I think I feel fortunate that we are in the right category. So that's a good news that
Right.
that there are a lot of big brands looking at it. The second positive is, I think uh, the awareness building is the one of the biggest problems,
Right.
and that awareness of fitness, we cannot do it alone.
Right.
There, so competition in a way is a good thing,
Right.
that you build more awareness. Like, I think e-commerce wouldn't have been so big if there was not, if the fierce competition wouldn't have been there.
Sure.
So the competition actually built the market,
Right.
and therefore that is a good thing for the consumers. For
Hmm.
the consumers, great competition is good, right? So
Right.
from talking from my customer's viewpoint, I think it's great that there are a
Right.
lot of companies. They are going to get better content, they're going to get better products, they're going to get better prices. uh,
Right.
so I think it's great for user, great for the industry.
Right.
Personally speaking, for us, I think we would continue. I think we are ahead in terms of in the home fitness space by
Interesting.
I believe a large margin.
Right.
Whether you look at our services part or our technology part or our community part, and I think as an organization we have to continue building on that lead,
Right.
focused on customers. That focus on customers brought us still here,
Right.
and I'm confident that solving the customer need, ensuring that they are happy and they choose OneFitPlus because that is their best chance to get fit. If
Right.
just that we can achieve, make fitness fun and become the best choice for getting fit, I'm sure everything else will take care of itself.
But does that mean it'll possibly require you to, invest more in the community that you've already built, right? Would it mean over communicating possibly, right? Would it mean, financial engineering of ownership, right? Do you think all of that is going to be a part of that strategy going forward? Because, my sense is it's getting crowded, right? The customer will be spoiled for choice, right? Companies will, even profitable, for example, companies with profitable unit economics, right? Or positive unit economics might have to bleed, right, in an environment like that. Uh, or what you're saying, does that mean it's a combination of all of this? What's the prep that, for example, would you do in an environment like that? And I understand you have an advantage, right? But it's a transparent ecosystem. I mean, we've become a homogeneous market, right? An aware customer is coming online any which way, right? You have an
Yeah.
access to that aware customer. Your competition has access to that aware customer, right? Uh, what will be your prep, right? Or say one or, and of course I don't want you to give it away, but what are the top 2 or 3 things that you would want to address? Something that you already start off, you've taken a cognizance of all the competition that is kind of coming up, the change in positions that is happening, and 1 or 2 things that you already factored in, right? Already focusing on that, these are things that will have to be very critical to our existence, right? What are some of those things? uh, they could come from increasing or improving what you're already doing, or they could be completely new pieces, right? What are some 1 or 2 of those pieces that you see happening?
I think we would love to make long-term investments,
Sure.
and I personally hate short-term expenditure, which does not really impact the customer in any way.
Right.
Just goes away in. I mean, if we are going to invest in awareness building,
Right.
that's to have a positive impact.
Sure.
If we are going to invest in building technology, that's a long-term investment.
Right.
We are going to invest in community building, that's a long-term investment.
Right.
If we are going to invest in giving more discounts, uh, it's not sustainable.
Right.
Uh, but at the same time, it's like uh, what is ours, we have to fight tooth and nail. So
Right.
we'll do it whatever it takes.
Interesting. And how about investing in a fancy brand ambassador?
We have Kara and Siddharth. I think they are Kara and Siddharth Malhotra are brand ambassadors, and I think
Right.
right now,
Are
I
you
think
increasing that bouquet?
uh, not in the current things. I think using them more effectively is what I would love to do.
Awesome. Mohit, second last question in this conversation today. What are the next 2 years like, right? What are the numbers? What are the milestones that you've set for yourself, right? I think it's a market which is becoming so much more competitive, but it's also a market which is kind of opening up, right? Disposable incomes are increasing. People will go on to buy. I think you've already factored in pieces where you want them to, the utilization is something that you've already built and engineered for, right? What are the next 2 years like? What are the milestones that you are prepping yourself for?
Right. I think investing massively into technology. That's
Okay.
one. That's one area. Uh,
Sure.
Getting our usage to customers using our machine 15 times in a month. That's one important metric we want to track. And I think that as a customer-facing metric or customer-facing criteria, I think
Right.
we'll give a whole lot of other things below. So I
Mhm.
think that's one big thing which it's going to drive building better technology,
Right.
more community initiatives. So that's one big area which we look at.
Okay.
Uh, Second is uh, we still do a limited set of products,
Right.
and we want to increase the coverage of those products
Interesting.
into many more areas. I think we've now built the MVP, or the minimum viable product for technology, and
Right.
now it has to be scaled up to cover more things in the fitness product domain and
Interesting.
the bicycle outdoor domain. So we're
Right.
going to invest there.
Super. Mohit, my last question in this conversation today. And this is more cliched, right? This is, but I believe that this is important in the entire scheme of things. I usually ask all of my guests, right, to give out 1 or 2 pieces of advice, right, that they learn from their own experiences, right? for many other people, many other founders who are, operating in a very, very competitive environment, right? I think it always, helps you, think better, visualize your problems in a better way, right? Learnings always help. What will those two learnings or three learnings be?
Right. Uh, I would say one of the things which I have learned personally
Sure.
over the period of time is that if you go out there and get into entrepreneurship, do it to solve a customer pain point.
Right.
If you're not solving uniquely a customer pain point, uh, don't do it, because there's a lot of romance in being an entrepreneur and
Right.
being a D2C brand. And usually romance is not objective. It is very, so do it objectively, because
Right.
finally you'll have to answer to your customers. That's the
Right.
god we have to serve. So being that solving that customer pain point is
Right.
that an important thing. Second is invest in building a team. Right?
Right.
Doesn't matter. It does not matter what stage you are in, but a large part of your success will be dependent on your team.
Right.
Users will see, or a lot of people outside sees one person, but then there's that team which actually does the 95% of the work and makes it successful.
Right.
So and a lot of times we see the signals of getting a wrong team or not building a team, and we don't focus on it. We keep focusing on building the business. I think
Right.
that is very short term and has a high failure rate. um, so I would say those are the two important things which I would share with everyone. Third is like the general part, right?
Right.
Around that effort and rigor is underestimated,
Right.
right? When you go after every SKU, every unit, every customer, that's underestimated, but is also universal knowledge. So
Right.
saying it seems very simple, but execution and that rigor is underestimated in my view. So
Super.
there's nothing. The success which is seen in terms of building a brand, a lot of it has to do with looking after every customer, following up with every customer,
Right.
every product. I mean, so that rigor and execution.
Super. Mohit, this was an absolutely phenomenal discussion, right? And how I want these conversations to go on, right? Because there's just so much of, depth, intensity, intelligence, right? Observational understanding, which is very underrated, according to me, right? I mean, India is a market where you have to observe, right? There is very little, clear institutionalized data, right, that you come across. I think all of these things put together, makes an incredible founder, right? And I have the luxury of talking to many of these founders like yourself, right? But Mohit, thank you so much for taking the time out. And like I said, right, how I wish these sessions could go on. But I look forward to having you with us much sooner. We discuss the nuances of the entire, fitness at home industry or home fitness industry, right, and wellness. And the way this industry is going. I think what we've spent little time doing is talking about the D2C aspect of it, right, which we'll possibly cover in the sessions as we go along, right. I think D2C is an absolutely phenomenal category. My sense is 100,000 brands are going to come up in that category. Uh, the good part is that the consumer is getting aware, right? And I think that requires an independent session itself, which we'll, and I think many of those questions which we'll keep for our next such interaction. Mohit, thank you so much for taking the time out. Loved every bit of this session, and look forward to having you with us soon.
Thank you, Ashu. It was great. Loved talking to you.
Thank you.